If you close your eyes and think back to your childhood, what is the first thing you smell? For many of us, it isn't a fancy perfume or an expensive restaurant. It's the scent of onions slowly softening in a heavy iron pan, the earthy aroma of a simmering stock pot, and the sweet, comforting steam of a sweat pudding. Nan didn't have a supermarket on every corner. She didn't have delivery apps or a pantry full of superfoods. What she had was a 10-bob note, a wooden spoon, and a magical ability to turn almost nothing into a feast that could fill a house. Today we're stepping back into that linoleum-floored sanctuary to remember the meals that cost less than £1, but felt like a king's ransom. We're celebrating the art of the British Nan, the woman who could stretch a single chicken or a bag of potatoes into a week of survival. Nan's kitchen didn't have a bin for food scraps. In her world, an onion skin was the start of a soup, and a carrot top was a treat for the rabbits. Everything had a purpose. The heart of her kitchen was the stock pot. It sat on the back of the stove, a bubbling cauldron of mystery. Every scrap of bone from the Sunday roast, every wilted leaf of cabbage, and the water from boiling the potatoes went into that pot. By Tuesday, it wasn't just water. It was a rich, dark broth that formed the base of a lobby or a scouse. A bag of soup mix, split peas, lentils and barley, cost mere pennies at the local corner shop. Tossed into that stock with a handful of pearl barley and whatever was left in the vegetable rack, it became a thick, rib-sticking stew. It was warm, it was nutritious, and it cost next to nothing. You'd dip a crust of thick-cut buttered bread into that bowl, and the cold winds of the 70s or 80s simply couldn't touch you. Monday was always wash day. The house would be filled with the smell of damp laundry and steam from the copper boiler. Nan didn't have time for a complicated roast on a Monday, but she had the leftovers. Nothing was ever thrown away. The bubble and squeak was the ultimate example of Nan's frugality. Yesterday's mashed potatoes and the cold, chopped-up remains of the Sunday cabbage were thrown into a frying pan with a big knob of dripping. She'd fry it until it developed that perfect, crispy, dark brown crust on both sides. If she was feeling flush, she'd crack an egg on top or serve it with a slice of cold ham. It was a meal born from necessity, but the sound of that cabbage hitting the hot fat is the soundtrack to many of our childhoods. It cost exactly £0 because it was already bought and paid for. Flour, eggs, and milk. These were the three pillars of the British pantry. With these, Nan could build an empire. The toad in the hole was the midweek highlight. She'd go to the local butcher and buy half a dozen cheap sausages, the ones with more filler than meat, but they tasted like heaven when Nan was done with them. She'd get the lard in the roasting tin smoking hot in the oven, the kind of heat that would make your eyes water. Then came the pour. The batter would sizzle and rise, climbing up the sides of the tin like a golden mountain. Served with a lake of thick brown onion gravy, it was a masterpiece of textures. The crispy burnt edges and the soft, doughy middle. It was a meal that could fill the bellies of 4 hungry children for less than the price of a pint of milk today. We all remember the dread, or the delight, when Nan announced it was liver and onions night. Back then, offal was dirt cheap. You could get a pound of pig's liver for a few pence. The trick was in the onions. Nan would slice them so thin they'd almost disappear into the gravy, caramelizing them until they were sweet and dark. The liver would be dusted in seasoned flour and fried quickly so it didn't turn to leather. It was a dish packed with iron and vitamins, the original superfood long before the term existed. Even the kids who hated the texture of the liver couldn't resist the gravy. We'd mop it up with a mountain of mash, and Nan would sit back satisfied that she'd fed her brood for less than £1 note. Dessert wasn't optional in Nan's house. It was the filler that ensured nobody went to bed hungry. The bread pudding was the queen of the budget desserts. It was the graveyard for every stale crust and forgotten end of a loaf. Nan would soak the bread in milk, add a handful of shriveled sultanas, a dusting of nutmeg, and a generous sprinkle of sugar. She'd bake it until it was dark, dense, and heavy enough to use as a doorstop. One square of that served with a splash of custard, and you were set for the night. Then there were the suet puddings, jam roly-poly or spotted dick. These were the heavyweights. They required steaming for hours, filling the kitchen with a humid, sweet mist. They were the ultimate stomach liners, ensuring that even if the main course was a bit thin, the dessert would finish the job. Looking back from our world of organic aisles and calorie-counting apps, it's easy to pity that era. But Nan didn't feel poor. She was an artist of the ordinary. She taught us that a meal wasn't about the price tag on the ingredients, it was about the ritual of sitting down together. She proved that you could survive a recession, a power cut, or a lean week with nothing but a bag of spuds and a bit of imagination. Her kitchen was a place where a pound went a mile, and a bowl of soup was a shield against the world. What was your Nan's magic meal? I want to fill the comments with the recipes that kept us going. Was it the pot of lobby that lasted 3 days? Was it her special way of making a single tin of sardines feed 4 people on toast? Or do you still make her bubble and squeak exactly the way she showed you? Please share your memories below. These stories aren't just about food. They are about the women who kept Britain running through the hardest of times. If this trip back to Nan's kitchen brought a tear to your eye or a rumble to your stomach, please give the video a like and subscribe. We're keeping the old ways alive, one recipe at a time. I'll be down in the comments, probably looking for a piece of bread and dripping. Until next time, keep the kettle on.